Welcome to this mid-12 design tutorial on how to make HDR photographs. My name is Michael Bredhauer, and today the programs we're going to be using to make the HDR photo is Lightroom and Photomatix Pro. And we're going to start here in Lightroom where we're going to take a look at the three images that I'm going to be using to create my HDR. It is an alleyway, and the reason I want to turn this into an HDR is I want to create a photograph that has correct exposure and good detail throughout the entire photograph. And the nature of this photograph makes it hard to do because of the time of the day it was and where it's at. You get this really bright sky, and it's hard to correctly expose for both the sky and the alleyway. You see when I expose for the alleyway, the sky becomes blown out, and when you expose for the sky, the alleyway becomes really dark. Now, one way to combat this without making an HDR photograph is to use a graduated neutral density filter, which I did not have at the time. So instead, I'm going to take these three images that I used, that I bracketed in my camera to have 2 stops difference, and I'm going to turn them into an HDR photograph. Now, when I set this up on my camera, I set it up on a tripod, and I used a handheld trigger to minimize the camera movement. Just by pressing the shutter, though, the movement of the shutter itself can have a slight movement on the camera. It's usually not noticeable just by looking at it. Even when you really have to zoom in and compare photographs side by side to see that very subtle movement. But when you're laying photographs on top of each other and creating an HDR image, you'll start to see that movement within the photographs when they're not quite aligned. So we're going to use Photomatix Pro, and they actually have a tool for you to go ahead and remove that effect to align the images for you. There's 2 ways you can do it. You can hit export and you can export to Photomatix Pro, or you can open up Photomatix Pro, click load bracketed photos, you take your 3 selected photos and you drag them in there. Select OK. And here's the pre-processing options I was telling you about, where you can align your images and crop out the aligned results. So it'll align the images by using horizontal and vertical shifts, or you can do it by matching features. I leave mine on horizontal and vertical shifts. And I mean, either one seems to work for me, so I just leave it on the first one. Ghosts are what happens when you have objects that are moving in your photograph, such as flags, or a person that wasn't able to stand completely still. They get that slight, movement, and it creates a ghostly effect around them when you combine the images on top of each other. So that'll go ahead and remove that, but I don't have any of those objects in my photographs, so I don't have to worry about that. I leave mine on Adobe RGB, and I leave the white balance to be set as shot. Process the image, it'll align the images, crop out the aligned results, and you'll open up with 3 windows. You'll have your preview window, you'll have your preset window, which will let you see all the different presets, and you'll have your window of adjustments where you can make your adjustments within each preset. And each preset has its own different kinds of adjustments that can be made. Now, these images were shot with a Nikon D800, and if you're familiar with that camera, the files are pretty large, which is why it takes a little bit longer with these photographs than other photographs. But here we go, they're merging them together. Alright, now here are the 3 windows I was telling you about. Here's your preset window, your preview window, and your adjustments window. Now, you want to go ahead and try and find a preset that most closely resembles the final image you're trying to make. Now, they have some, such as this one right here, that look more natural, and they have other ones, such as this one, that are real surreal. So it depends on what type of effect you're trying to go for. Personally, I like to go for this photograph anyways, I want to go for a more realistic effect. Now, I like this one. Let me check out one more. This one's a little bit brighter. Now you see you can make adjustments within it. So if you like the preset but it's not quite exactly right, you can go ahead and make different adjustments here. So I'm going to go ahead, I want to bring some more of the detail back out in the sky. But I also want to have my shadows. I want to make sure the alleyway is highlighted as well. And it doesn't look like this one's going to do it for me. So let's go ahead and try a different one. And I mean, you can just, I'm scrolling through these different ones so you can see the differences between each kind of one you can find. Personally, I think I'm just going to stick with the photographic one. Let me try this one real quick, see how this one works. There's a little too much contrast in that photo for me. Now I'm going to get it as close as I want it, and get it to the way I want it, because then I can make my final adjustments in Lightroom. It's showing pretty good. It's not exactly the way I want it just yet, but it's pretty close. I'll go ahead and process this one out. And while this is doing its thing, I'm going to tell you there's several different ways to make HDR photographs. This is just one way to do it. Another way to do it is just using Lightroom and Photoshop, which is one of my more favorite ways. There's also software made by Nike software, N-I-K. It's called HDR Soft. It's also a plugin that can be gotten for Lightroom, and you can export your images right from Lightroom into the HDR Soft. You know, do your HDR image and then export it right back in. Here you can do your final adjustments. I don't want to do mine here though. I want to do mine. Here we can make our final adjustments. I don't want the highlights up. That's what I want. I want it. And now I'm just gonna save it to the desktop real quick, just to make things easier. Now, when you use the plugin for Lightroom, you can save it directly back into your catalog in Lightroom, and you can stack it right next to the original photograph. Unfortunately, I don't know what's going on with my Lightroom plugin. For some reason, it just isn't working anymore. Now I'm going to go ahead and re-import this file that I just made back into Lightroom. And I can make my final adjustments from here. And I would like to bring up some of the, brighten up the alleyway a little bit. A little dark for me. I want to bring back some more of the detail in the sky. And there we go. That's how you make an HDR photograph. You can see that I've got good, correct exposure in both the sky and the alleyway, and I have good detail throughout the entire image. And I mean, you can go ahead and make further adjustments from here if you wish, but once you get it the way you like it, then you can, you can save, you can export the image or just leave it in your catalog, or do whatever you want with it from here. If you have any questions about how to make HDR photographs and it wasn't, using Photomatix Pro or Lightroom, feel free to send me a message. If you're wondering how to do it using the other programs such as Photoshop or the HDR soft, check back for another video. We're going to go ahead and cover how to do those in the other videos. So again, my name is Michael Bretthauer. I'd like to thank you for your time and showing you how to make HDR photographs using Lightroom and Photomatix Pro. And I'll see you again in a later video.